Women who said no to proposal, what made you say no and what was the outcome? Story 1. I turned down a guy once. We weren't even dating at the time, he just really liked me. We had known each other for a very long time. We'd grown up together. When we were younger we were inseparable. There weren't too many other people in my small town that were in our age range. But as he grew older he didn't develop the same interests that I had. He started really focusing on his image and it turned into a vanity that I found really unattractive. He'd talk about his workouts and how much protein he was eating. He took less and less interest in me as a friend and a human, and saw me as just a pretty girl that he wanted to compliment his muscles. I heard on multiple occasions that he would talk about me to his buddies about how he already had me in the bag and that I was as good as his, like I was his property. My dad was kind of disappointed that I never developed an interest for him. I think he always had a soft spot for the guy. I still remember the day ID decided never to speak to him again. I had just left the library, and was pretty focused on the book that I had borrowed. Though it was one that ID read before I was desperate to complete a quote from it that had popped in my head the previous evening. I turned a corner and I nearly ran into him. His surprise turned quickly sour as he spat out, "What are you doing at a library?" I stammered out something about the book I was holding. I'm not great at coming up with convincing excuses. He curled his lip up like a villain from a classic movie and sneered at me. His darting eyes caught glance at the book I was carrying. His eyes narrowed and he said, "How can you read this?" He said that about my favorite book and thought I'd marry him. That, I did my best to stay away from him after that. A few weeks after this incident my dad's car broke down when he was on his way home from work. It was really storming outside and I got really worried when I saw his GPS just stop moving all of a sudden. I was about to go find my father when I saw it. A Facebook notification to a wedding, to my wedding. This son of a had invited everyone that we knew to our wedding on FB as his proposal. I laughed a little and hit the decline button before I went to find my dad. Long story short, my dad had gotten imprisoned inside a magical castle. I swapped places with him and ended up falling in love with the castle's owner, a beast straight out of mythology. The guy who'd proposed ended up trying to storm the castle with the rest of the town, most of whom were just pissed off that there had been a beast living next door for all these years. The beast and the guy had a pretty epic battle and the beast ended up winning, and because of his sacrifice or some he turned back into a human. I'm really glad people enjoyed this. Thank you. IMHO, if you're ever proposing and not 100 sure that Husher is going to say yes, then you're doing it wrong. It shouldn't be a surprise. You're not asking someone to the prom. Of course the how and when can be a surprise, and you might always have that little nagging doubt. But I stand by what I said. Story 2. I'm not a woman but I am a man who has been turned down before. I did the whole shebang, even brought roses, but being in the 4th grade probably ruined it for me. Story 3. So I own a company that deals with various precious gems and metals. We are vertically integrated and actually go through the entire supply chain of diamonds, from mining to cutting to retail, so I have a pretty intimate knowledge base and experience on the matter. It's really annoying that people don't understand this simple concept. The proposal is the surprise, not the question of will she marry you. It boggles my mind how many people don't understand this. You two are getting married means you both need to have talked about it. It's not a surprise like getting someone a puppy, which even that is a terrible idea if you haven't talked to the person about if they'd like the responsibility of being a dog owner. Honestly, if you propose, and your so says no, it's a good thing because you're clearly not ready to be married as you lack the very foundation. Communication. So, to all you women men who've said no to guys ladies that asked you without talking about it, even if you've been dating for 50 years, don't feel bad now. Let's say you've talked about the marriage and know you're getting a yes. Make sure she is an active part of picking out the ring. Go ring shopping together. This isn't some small purchase like curtains that she may not like. She will have this on her finger every single day for the rest of her life. Make sure she loves it. Don't try to guess this. Chances are she may even be ecstatic and pretend she loves it but deep inside not like it. If she's a great girl it may not really be important to her, but in any case, it doesn't hurt for her to like what she's got on her finger. If you have already purchased a ring, most retailers will allow a return within 90 days. I personally don't, but I also make sure I go through various conversations with clients about Hisher relationships such as how long they've dated, why they intend to marry if they've talked about getting married, and if the so is part of the ring diamond choice process. This way I mitigate any risk of returns short of rare instant annulments or call-offs. Edit. Women men love surprises, but not this kind. It's like her giving you a surprise baby. Even if you may have wanted a kid, you're probably going to freak out more than being happy. Edit 2. Hey race, my comment answering most questions people have been asking. Don't want to keep rewriting. Story 4. Not me, but my mom. My mom's dad is a pretty successful businessman. My mom was working in some entry-level job in the same industry as my grandpa. The son of the owner of the company my mom worked for was a friend of hers. He asks her to hang out one night. Not a date or anything. She had been dating my dad for years at the time and ends up proposing to her because his dad was a successful businessman, and her dad was a successful businessman, so obviously they should get married. The words good breeding were thrown around, future children were brought up. Obviously she said no. TLDR guy proposes to my mom to genetically engineer super business babies. Story 5. We'd been dating long distance for 2 months when he called me and laid out his entire life plan for us. We were to marry immediately. I would graduate school, become pregnant a lot while using my art degree to support our kids and his suddenly desired career in full-time volunteer ministry work. Never mind our religious differences and my already stated intention to remain childless. He didn't propose. Propose implies asking. He just stated it as fact and was honestly surprised when I objected. None of this was in my life plan, at all, nor was it discussed between us prior. He broke up with me very shortly afterward, citing my supposed inability to be a reasonable, rational person in light of my rejection of his unilateral propositions. Edit clarity. We were both in our early 20s, bullet dodged. Story 6. We had been dating for 3 years, having some trouble, and he wasn't interested in making any changes to work things out. He basically broke up with me. Turned out I was relieved, then found out he was really just bluffing to teach me a lesson. When he figured out that I was okay with breaking up, he proposed. Really pissed me off. I actually responded with, "I have a date this weekend." I guess that was a little harsh, but don't propose out of desperation because you screwed up. Story 7. We were 19 and in a crazy on-off relationship. At the time of the proposal we were off, and in my head we were off for good. He came to my house and begged for me to come back, including a tear-filled proposal. I said no, got out of his truck and went back inside. A month later he told me he was going to be a dad. He knocked someone up around the time he wanted me back. Story 8. I said no because we're not ready. We've been long distance for 3 years now, and although we love each other very much, he knows I won't marry him until we're both settled in together. Still, he asks almost 3 times a week, and it's become a bit of a laugh for us. He tries to sneak the question in without me noticing, and I add ridiculous conditions to my yes. I'm sure that when we decide to get married, he'll be too nervous to actually ask properly. He'll probably end up farting in bed and threatening to Dutch oven me if I don't say yes. It's not all bad in no world. Story 9. We had been really amazing friends for 5 years. Hooked up in between our separate relationships, then eventually were truly together for 2 years. I loved him and told him all the time. He never once told me he loved me back. He had been through some shitty relationships and said he just couldn't say that. We were wild, but he was wildest. The drinking was the killer. He only got close to telling me he loved me twice. Each time was up off his, and only said, "Come on, you know how I feel about you." I didn't know if we were just fun or he actually gave a. Then I left, and found someone that treated me better. That's when he started to really get that I could put up with his and still love him like not many could. A few months later he invited me over to talk it out and make things right. He had put together an entire photo album of our years together with a heartfelt letter. He told me he loved me, and was starting to go to AA. I hugged him and told him how happy I was for him and that it was sad we had come to this. Should have kept my mouth shut. He said it doesn't have to end, then whips out that box. The box you expect to get excited about, but the fear in my heart and the sadness for us. Ugh, I told him it wasn't a good idea. He needed to get his together. I loved him, but our relationship was pretty when we were together. Almost a year later I moved across the country. He showed up, drunk at my door out of the blue, told me it was bad. His current GF was stealing from him and shooting up. He couldn't trust her. He wanted to move in with me and make it work. I told him I was so sorry, and that he should get away from that and seek professional help, that he's obviously drunk and I can't find a way to make us work ever with the drinking. He showed up at my work the next few days drunk, gets kicked out. I loved him but was so mad with him I told him to go back home and leave me alone. He left. A few days later I get a text saying he's so sorry, that I was always the one for him, I should be with him as his wife. Then he killed himself, overdose. I love him, even if we were not the best together. I can never forgive myself for getting angry with him. I always wonder what if I had said yes. Sure, we may be miserable, but he would be alive. Story 10. He asked me which Indiana Jones movies I liked. I told him the first and third ones were good, but didn't care for Temple of Doom. This was before the fourth one came out. Right then and there he got down on one knee and proposed to me with a taco he was about to eat. 5 years later we're still dating. Edit. It was a hard-shell standard issue Taco Bell taco. It was later eaten, but I don't remember by who. The whole thing was overshadowed when we walked outside and found the physics department assembling a trebuchet. The answer was someday. Being college students at the time, and now working professionals, were not in a good financial or career spot to get married yet. Story 11. 2 friends in my old high school clique dated for a couple months when we were all 14. We still remained friends after high school, but the guy never got over the girl. He was scary obsessed. Before we all went our separate ways for college, the dude came out of nowhere and asked me once if we were both single by 30 if I would agree to marry him. He was 100 serious. I said no thanks. I wasn't interested in him, and he did it out of desperation and wanting to off his ex, because we were once best friends. He eventually dated a whole bunch of unstable and, not to be cruel, very unfortunate looking women. He had low self-esteem and didn't take care of himself after the breakup. He actually married one a year or so before he turned 30. He spent most of his 20s harassing his old girlfriend, and driving by her house playing their song on the radio as loudly as possible. Cops were called. Even at 30, he still stalks his high school ex-girlfriend, me old friend, from time to time and sits outside her place of work staring at her through the window, trying to get her attention. Yet again, she's had to call the cops a number of times. It's really awkward for her because she has to explain to her coworkers, "Yeah, that's some guy I dated for 2 months when I was a freshman in high school. Can we get him out of here?" Story 12. Turned down one guy because we didn't agree on how children should be raised. Turned down another guy because he proposed after I had moved on from our relationship. Story 13. I said no because I honestly was not prepared for such commitment so early and that fast. We had been seeing each other for about a year. I was 22, he was 24, and was always the super romantic kind of guy. Don't get me wrong, I love this, but he was always rushing things way too early and too soon. Luckily, he didn't plan a fancy proposal kind of thing, just surprise ask me at home, so I had to say no then. It didn't take long for us to break up eventually. Story 14. He was already married, offered to get divorced for me, and asked me multiple times with a ring. I have no idea why, and he kept asking. We were co-workers and he saw me as a challenge, I think, so obviously, said no every time. Story 15. TLDR, I turned down a proposal once and threw away his 2K ring to boot. Wall of text ahead. We started dating when I was 16. My parents were going through a divorce, so I was a bit vulnerable. And looking back, I think he could see that. We dated for 12 years. 12 years of emotional and abuse that I didn't see. He just slowly whittled down my self-esteem until I was just a shell of my former self. Then, out of the blue, he broke up with me. I cried for an hour or so, begged him to take me back, and when he said no, turned to my friends for sympathy. And you know what each one of them said? Good, they hated him. Everyone I talked to had a different, and I started to realize, legitimate reason for hating that. It was like the fog parted. I was free. Almost a couple of weeks later he showed up at my work begging me to come back. I said no. He begged me to just come out with him once more. He had something to show me. Being young, stupid, and honestly, still a little easily influenced by him, I agreed. I was happy. And I wasn't going back anyway. He took me to this house that was under construction, said he wanted us to have a house like this, and got down on a knee to propose. I said no, he begged. Finally we came to the agreement. Seriously, this guy did not take no for an answer, that I would keep the ring for a while and think about it. So I did. I showed some people at work my sparkly ring, the one I had picked out 6 months before he broke up with me, telling them, no, I'm not saying yes, and I'm not keeping the ring, it's just pretty. Finally, after I showed the guy I was interested in dating and he freaked out, I decided I need to tell my ex no for real and give the ring back. We agreed to meet at a Starbucks. Unfortunately, and somewhat dangerously, for me the Starbucks was closed, no one around, dark parking lot. We argued for like 3 hours again. This guy could not take a no. He threw my keys in an attempt to keep me there. He slammed my car door, coming close to hurting me, and finally he put his hands around my throat, and after the years of abuse and anger and worthlessness, I couldn't help it. I just laughed in his face. I think that snapped him out of it because he agreed I could go. He just wanted me to take the ring. I said no. After some interminable time later arguing about it, I stuck it through the window of his car. He searched around, said he couldn't find it, then finally capitulated that if I would just take this little baggie of inspiring religious books and little knick-knacks he had brought for me, I could go. By the time I got to my apartment complex hours later, exhausted and angry as I tossed that little bag in my complex dumpster, I got a call at 5 a.m. from him. I answered. We talked for a minute before he asked me what I had done with the bag. I told him that I had thrown it out. The ring was in the bag. He had found it in the car and slipped it in the bag before he let me leave. I guess hoping that I would find it when I got home and call him. At that point, I could go downstairs, across my complex to the dumpster, and rescue the bag, or I could go back to sleep. I hope there's a rat out there with a beautiful diamond crown. I had loaned him 2K over the course of our relationship that he never paid me back for, so I figured I bought it anyway. When I was a little kid I didn't understand marriage obviously. All I knew is you marry someone you love, and I loved my mom, so I would always ask her to marry me, and it made me so sad when she would say no. Story 16. Throwaway because reasons. This will probably get buried, but here it goes. During the summer of 2011 my family and I traveled to Italy near the coast. For those of you who don't know, it was extremely beautiful. I had just gotten done with my first year of college. I was 18. Cut to the hotel we stayed in. Now this hotel was different than an American one in that it was literally built into the side of a cliff. It went above ground elevator, then lobby, then walk through the restaurant with a kitchen you could see into to get to the area where the rooms were. So in short, no way of avoiding the restaurant kitchen. This hotel had a small staff, but they were all very nice. Yes, there was a small language barrier, but we chatted and talked and helped us out. One of them was the head chef. Head chef seemed pretty cool at first. He was late 30s, early 40s, understood my love of cooking and would teach me how to make certain things. Even gave me a gnocchi board and taught me how to fish the way he did since we were so close to the coast and I like to fish. Needless to say, young 18-year-old me had no clue that this chef had a massive crush on me. Now I know what you're thinking. What shouldered in asleep? Are you sure he wasn't just being nice? Yes, I am. He proposed to me 3 times. In a week. Proposal 1. It was breakfast time. I'm not a morning person, but Italian breakfasts consist of pastries, fruit, cheese, and meat. My type of breakfast. I go to grab a donut-looking pastry, think miniature Bavarian cream donut, but more amazing when I feel a tap on my shoulder. I turn around and it's the head chef. I go to say good morning, and before I get the words out of my mouth he says, "What shouldered in asleep? You marry me now?" I thought he was joking. I also had no clue how to react. A 30 to 40-something-year-old Italian dude just proposed marriage to me at 7 a.m. while I'm in my PJs and shoving a donut in my mouth. I'm pretty sure my immediate reaction was to laugh first, then look confused, then sit with my family and eat. I thought it was over. I was wrong. Proposal 2. It was a hot day, hot as one might say. I felt like fishing because I like fishing, so I grabbed the fishing gear, sea sponge, fishing line, hook, stale bread from the kitchen and headed down. Before I could head down the side of the cliff I saw the head chef. He looks happy, walks over to me and says, "You go fish, you know fish, you stay here, you be my wife." I again am not entirely sure of my reaction. I think I said something like, "I'm gonna go fish so thanks but no thanks, see ya." Again I'm 18, I'm in another country. I don't know if random marriage are the norm, so I went and fished and tried to forget about it. Then comes proposal 3. It's one of the last nights we're at this hotel. I'm kind of on edge because of the head chef, but I'm at dinner with my parents and sister, so I don't think anything is gonna happen. I'm mindlessly talking about something, a book, or some college, I don't know, when I feel hands start rubbing my back. I panic, deer in the headlights mode activated. Who is rubbing my back but the head chef? I'm extremely uncomfortable at this point and I think my parents realized it. Parents sort of pulled the chef away from me while talking to him, not wanting to start a scene. He's dressed up to go out to some nightclub and winks at me. He says something to my dad about me marrying him, and my parents just sort of pull a grin and bear. "She's too young for that kind of thing." I, on the other hand, am mortified and embarrassed as this is the 3rd time this has happened in a week. I finally realized that he's probably not joking as he tried talking to my dad about it. He did apologize and seemed embarrassed himself. But I mean, dude, FFS, so many lines being crossed. Now I'm in a loving and committed relationship with a guy my age. We've been dating a little over a year. We've talked about marriage and surprise surprise, I'm not scared or confused anymore. So cheers. TLDR. Italian head chef with language barrier proposes 3 times in the time span of a week to a very confused 18-year-old me. Story 17. It was simply a ridiculous suggestion. We had been on and off. He hadn't been speaking to me for months until about a week before the proposal, and we hadn't discussed even dating again, and suddenly he was on one knee with an actual diamond ring. Story 18. One guy. We worked together, never dated until my divorce was final. He asked me to marry him less than 1 month after it was final. Nope, nope, nope. Story 19. Not me personally, but one of my close girlfriends. She was dating this guy for 8 years. He proposed. She said no because he wasn't going anywhere with his life. Not sure if true. I only know he's been working in a retail store for years and gained a lot of weight. Her saying no was just too hard to recover from, and they broke up. He's been doing a Facebook rampage about her, starting to work out and stuff, while she found someone who she seems to love dearly. Story 20. We were 19. He proposed with a cubic zirconia ring and pretended to impress me and all of our friends by stating it was real. In general, he was a chronic liar and cheater, very insecure and seemed to be the type who wanted to trap someone into marriage. I was much more insecure and passive then. He got married 2 months ago. Thank God I said no. Story 21. We started dating 2 weeks into college and dated all through college. It was really rocky the last year or so. Because I didn't have an identity outside of dude's girlfriend, I had trouble breaking it off. So I got a second job, enrolled in 18 hours, and decided I would get a 4.0. This was all done so I wouldn't see him as much. The fighting decreased because I was too busy with all that to sweat the small stuff. Well, we stopped fighting because I didn't give it anymore. He believed that it was a good sign and popped the question on the way home from his parents' house in Chicago. On the plane, worst flight ever. It was a good decision because it turned out he already had someone lined up and they were dating within a couple of weeks or so. He got her pregnant I think 3 months after we broke up. Poor thing. I remember that she used to call me about their relationship problems, while she was pregnant for his child, because I knew him better than she did. It always struck me as insane that she was carrying his child, but also knew that she didn't know him well enough to know when he was lying. Who does that? She was beautiful too, just a wee bit dumb. Got caught up in the DJ mode I guess. Story 22. I turned down my first proposal because of the massive insult it was. I'd been dating a girl for a year, nothing, but a very romantic relationship. I'd made it clear that I was happy as a woman and that I was not transitioning early on. She thought I was either a drag queen or a pre-op transsexual. I don't look very female dressed. On Valentine's she proposed, and as I was sitting in shock, a happy shock at the specific moment, she mentioned that we could have the wedding as soon as you finish transitioning and the surgery's healed. When I said excuse me, she repeated it. I simply got up and walked away. She'd spent a year deliberately ignoring everything I'd said about being a woman. Just ugly. She ignored seeing me naked the once and in bathing suits frequently. She ignored everything people told her about me, because in her mind I was transitioning to male. About a month later, she left town. I think she might be living in BC now. I've gotten cards from someone with her first name with a Vancouver postal code. I marked them no such resident and returned them. The name is unusual enough that I'd know if it was family. Besides, I'm now engaged to someone who actually listens, sometimes D. Story 23. The first time, it was my high school sweetheart. I said I didn't want to get married or have kids. I said I was just looking for some fun. But he proposed with 13 roses, candles, and a beautiful emerald ring. I don't like diamonds. I said no. We broke up. For a while we didn't talk but ended up friends. The second time was a guy I was seeing who was 5 years younger and a little weird. You know, dark and serious goth boy. I told him I did not want to get married or have kids. But one day he just turns up at my house with this beautiful emerald ring. I said no. We broke up, were friends later for a while, then he ended up committed. Finally we come to the man who did not propose. No ring, nothing at all. We were just out under a million stars in the desert and he said if we join forces, we'll be more powerful together than we could ever be alone. I agreed. We got married. No rings, no ceremony. Just a quiet signing of papers at a registry office. We're still together and happy. Some people, if they are emotionally damaged, have trouble with the traditional stuff. diamonds and big proposals and all that, and it took until I was 32 for someone to speak to me in a way I could handle, but at least it happened. Story 24. I've commented about this before, but I said no because we were 15 and I kept trying to leave. The outcome: he chased me through the school, and when we got close to my next class he shouted, "Why so you can Zach?" That was the end of that relationship. Story 25. It was too soon. We had only been dating for 9 months. I liked him, but wasn't sure that I was ready for marriage, plus I was too young, but we kept dating, and 6 months later moved in together. When he asked a year later, I said yes. Thank goodness he didn't make a production of the first or second proposal. Story 26. I found out from a blabbermouth but fortuitously so friend of ours that he was planning to propose over a trip, and the first thing I thought was I wonder how I'd make sure I kept the dog in the divorce. So since I couldn't get the money back for the trip, which was like 2 to 3 days from finding this out, I waited until we got on the plane, got fake drunk, and fake railed against the institution of marriage, saying how glad I was that we were both evolved beyond such a stupid ritual. Looking back, it was a really immature way to handle it, but it was effective, and we still had a good trip, at least better than if we had been out like 4K on the trip. By travel insurance, kiddies. 6 years later he's been married and divorced twice. He's really not a bad guy. But I don't think he's built for long-term relationships, and our dog is now my dog. Story 27. He proposed while we were sitting on a park bench, said we could move to Chicago because he has friends there. I said no because I'm not going to marry some guy who just sat down on a park bench because he wants a green card and gringa. Walked away. Story 28. Someone I had been dating for 2 months asked to marry him once. He was needy and clingy and didn't understand that I was 23 and not even close to being ready, and I saw our relationship as a summer fling before leaving to finish school. He showed up at my apartment after the breakup. He stalked and called me until I said I would get a restraining order. Saw him in a restaurant a couple years ago. I could tell he wanted to say something to me, but I was happy he left. We were in 2 different places in our lives, and I never led him on or told him I loved him. It was just awkward. Story 29. I said no because he was an immature, mean-spirited man-child who just wanted someone to clean up after him and make him feel important. We had agreed from the beginning that we were both just in it to have fun. Nothing serious. He proposed. I declined. He became ill-tempered and critical of everything I did. When I told him I had enough and needed a break from him, he became openly insulting and brought home girls to in the bed that I bought. Best decision I ever made was to say no. Story 30. Friend of a girl with a great story here. She went on a sympathy date with this guy. She thought he was nice but had no interest in him. He took her out for dinner and they had some laughs but nothing came of it. Fast forward a month and he calls and says his sister can't go to prom if she doesn't have supervision. So essentially he said that his mom would let his sister go if he went with her. So obviously my friend goes because he basically was saying if you don't come my sister can't go to prom. Fast forward a week and he comes over out of the blue to her house. He brought a movie and asked if she wanted to watch it. Now my friend is really nice, so she says okay, that's fine. They sit down on the couch. No hand-holding, no cuddling, strictly platonic film watching. All of the sudden he drops down on his knee and pulls out a ring and say, "Will you marry me?" My friend looked at him and just said, "No, what made you think I would say yes?" He looks at her completely serious and says, "Our first date you laughed at my joke and I thought we were destined to be together." Yup, a joke, I don't know what joke, sorry. He put the ring away, finished the movie, then left. They never spoke again. She is doing well now, dating a good guy for some years now. Story 31. Not me, but my mom turned down her boyfriend when she was 19 or so. They had been together all through high school. He was borderline abusive and a cheater, but he had her convinced that she needed him and that he loved her. Oh, he won't let me wear clothes he hasn't approved first so that no other men can look at me. He must love me so much. It doesn't matter that he's free to ogle other girls. That's just what men do. It was her first relationship, and one of only 3 or 4 she ever had, including her last, my father. At the end of their relationship, my mom had gotten her associates to be a nurse. She was making a lot of money and had a lot going for her, while her boyfriend was unemployed and uneducated with no ambition or drive to improve his life. He also drank excessively. One night when they had gone to a party, she stayed sober and he got hammered. He demanded that she give him his car keys to drive home, and when she refused, his friends taunted him that he was whipped by his goody two-shoes girlfriend. He ripped the keys out of her hand so hard her fingernail tore off. She broke up with him on the spot. A while later he called her and pleaded that she meet with him, insisting that he'd changed and that he needed to talk to her. She grudgingly met him and he drove them to the liquor store to buy a pack of beer. She started to freak out at the nerve of this guy and he told her to just give him a chance. He played some song on the car radio that he said was their song. She listened as he drank some of the beer. When the song ended he asked her to marry him. This abusive, manipulative, cheating dirtbag wanted her to marry him after all that stupid he did. She obviously said no. Eventually she wound up saying yes to my dad. He proposed to her in his kitchen. I know, very romantic, but they've been married for 20 years now. Proof that it's the person that matters most, not the method of proposal. Story 32. I said no because I was 16 and he was 17. We were on a class trip to Europe and he must have felt it was the perfect place to pop the question. He was my first real boyfriend and I was his first real girlfriend. Unfortunately he was really clingy, possessive, and I viewed our relationship as a stepping stone. I was never in love with him. When I said no he lost it and told everyone on the trip with us, our classmates and teachers, that I had rejected his proposal and was miserable for the rest of the trip. I tried breaking up with him when we got back home but he wouldn't let me, as in head scream, cry, and threatened to commit suicide. I actually dated him for 1 year after this and acted like an awful person so that he would have to break up with me. Years later he was still sending flowers to my parents' house on my birthday and showing up unannounced when he was on leave from the Navy. Eventually I moved and told my parents to never tell him where I live. I think he's in Guam now and that makes me feel safe. Last I heard from him he told me he was divorcing his wife because he just can't love her like I loved you.